Hello, my name's Kate and I'm from Sheffield Parenting Team, and I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes today about how to get the language right when we're talking to our children and teenagers and how to give really clear instructions. When we give an instruction, we're not always clear. Sometimes we can be a little bit vague, sometimes we can use sarcasm, and sometimes we can be quite negative. This can often lead to children misinterpreting what we're asking, so they might not comply, and then we can get really frustrated and behaviour can escalate and we might get into arguments. So I'm going to talk firstly around when we use negative instructions. So this might be when we say to children, don't eat with your fingers, don't get sand everywhere, don't run, don't hit your sister, and don't put your fingers in the plug sockets. We tell children what we don't want them to do, and often we're not clear about what behaviour we want to see. So if we see a sign that says don't touch wet paint, what do we want to do? We want to touch it because we want to check and see if it's wet. We almost don't believe the sign, do we? We just give it a little tap just to check if it's wet or not. Also, it's planted the seed. We hadn't thought about even touching the wall before we saw the sign, so it gives us the idea. So what we need to be saying to children is, use kind hands, please, with your sister, or gentle hands, as long as they know what kind and gentle look like. We might want to say, keep the sand in the sand tray. We might want to say, walk, please, or keep your hands to yourself. Use your spoon. They're all really good ideas of clear and simple instructions. So also we might use too many instructions at once, and that's when we might say things like go upstairs, brush your teeth, wash your face, come back down, put your shoes on and wait at the door. So children often hear the first and the last instruction and everything in the middle gets a little bit lost. So if your child's waiting at the door without any shoes on, we might tell them off for not listening, but it might just be because we've given them too many instructions. So if we can stick to one at a time before we give the next instruction, children are more likely to comply. Also, we might use quite vague instructions, and that's when we might say things like carry on, see what happens. That's one of my favourites because it sounds like something's going to come after that behaviour. Children might think they're going to get a little treat or something. We might say things like pack it in. We might say things like give over, watch out. Watch out for what? Be careful. We might say things like you dare. Well, if somebody dares me to do something, I'm probably going to have a go because I like a little bit of a challenge. Also, we need to be really, really mindful of our body language when we're talking to children. So we might say things like, I told you 10 times now, you need to pick up your toys. We can give a little bit of a head wobble and a finger even. And when our children do that back to us with the head and the finger, we can get a little bit upset with them. But sometimes they're just mirroring our body language and that can frustrate us. Also, think about sarcasm. So sometimes we can be quite sarcastic. So we might say something like, you've left all the cupboards open. You've left your clothes on the floor again. We might say, well, get the flags out. You've finally cleaned up your room. We might even say something like, if there was one more light on in here, it would be like Blackpool illuminations. What do we mean when we say those things? You might get a child that might go and put that light on so that it really is like Blackpool illuminations, because that would be great. Who wouldn't want to go to Blackpool illuminations? So sometimes we just need to be clear. What we really want them to do is close the cupboard, put your dirty clothes in the linen basket, turn the light off. If we want to be even more specific, we can say close the cupboard under the sink, please. Yeah, so we really, really need to be clear about what we want. We do too much of this and we give too much chat, and sometimes it's just unnecessary and it just turns into white noise. So when we are giving instructions, use your child's name. So Kate, put your dirty cup in the sink, please. Give 5 seconds to process, and that's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and that's in our heads, because if our children hear us saying counting, they're going to wait until we get to 5. If you've got a child with an additional need, it might even need to be 8 seconds because they need that little bit longer to process. But think about this. If we're in the middle of watching Coronation Street and our child asks us for a drink, what do we say? Sometimes we might say, in a minute. Is it ever a minute? Sometimes children might even count. They might start counting on their watch, or they might look at the clock, and then we accuse them of being cheeky. Say what we mean. If we mean, I'll get you a drink at the break, Say, when the break comes on, then I'll get you a drink. Children like us to be really clear, and they like to know what to expect from us. And sometimes if we ask our children to do something and they say wait, or wait a minute, we need to think about where they might have got that from, because sometimes that might be what we say. So thank you for listening today, and continue doing an amazing job that you're all doing in this really difficult time. Think about your language, give one instruction at a time, and try and keep it really clear. Thanks for listening.